لان البوزيشن بتاعك يمكن عايز يتظبط سنه.
اه، ما انا كنت هسأل، انا اسال كده كويس ولا محتاج اغير وضع الكمبيوتر ولا نطلعه كده اكتر؟
نعم نعم. لا لا، انت بالتالي حط حاجه تحت الكمبيوتر، ارفعها بحيث ما يبانش انك باصص لتحت، تبقى
اه،
باصص ستريت.
كويس.
حط كتاب ولا حاجه تحت الكمبيوتر.
طب ثانيه بقى كمان نقلع الجاكيت ده، حضرتكم عارفين ان احنا عندنا جاكيتات.
اه لا خلاص، احنا نشهد.
خلينا نقلع الجاكيت والحاجات اللي مربطانا دي ونبقى لايتر.
احنا لايف الآن ترى يا دكتور.
اقفل الكاميرا يا دكتور بقى.
حاضر. وارسل الرابط للدكتور يا عماد.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. Welcome everyone on behalf of the Global Performance Management Academy. I would like to welcome you to this regular webinar series that we have started almost more than 2 years ago, and almost on a weekly basis we have a guest speaker. Today our guest speaker is Professor Hisham Dinana, and I would like to make sure from the chat if you can hear me well. So if you can just drop a line saying that if you can hear me, mashallah. And we have so many, we have over almost 150 people. We are not issuing any certificates for people working in the healthcare. You can obtain certificates of attendance, but it's not recognized by the healthcare sector in Saudi Arabia. We are working on this. I'm glad you can hear me well. The topic of tonight is strategy savvy, balanced strategy development approach using insight, culture, operation, and digitization. My name is Mohammed Mustafa Mahmoud. They call me for short Dr. 3M. And Ahmad, if you can just go to the next slide, please. Just let me tell you briefly about the Global Performance Management Academy. In the Academy, we have 10 courses which we offer that represent the life cycle of strategy development and execution. The first 2 steps is strategic analysis and strategy formulation using usually the balanced scorecard, and then the key performance indicator. The third step is strategic risk management. And these 3 steps represent the strategy development, steps. From step number 4 to step number 10, it has to do with execution itself. As you know, out of each 10 good strategies, only 7 to 9 strategies fail to be executed successfully, and the remaining fail to be executed successfully. And this is due to shortage in execution capability. Step number 4 to step number 10 represent strategy execution. So it covers strategy governance and alignment, leading and managing strategy execution, actual collection of KPI data, and then data analytics and visualization of performance data, and then a kit of decision-making tool that can be used to bridge the gap in performance, the performance gap, if the actual performance falls short of the target performance. Step number 9, I think it's one of the most important step in the all 10 steps, which is data-driven performance review meeting. It's a very important tradition and skill and sort of governance that we need in our organization. And then performance reporting. We have more than 15,000 students now currently studying these 10 these courses and obtaining certificates. You can obtain one of these 4 certificates depending on how many courses of these courses you would like to study and complete. And all of the courses are available online. And by the way, Dr. Hisham Dinana, which is our guest tonight, he is the author of course number 3. So he has been a faculty member of GPMA now for several years. He offered this course, Strategic Risk Management, several times. Ahmad, if you go to the next slide, please. Let me shortly introduce Dr. Hisham. Dr. Hisham Dinana has over 30 years of working experience in strategy, marketing, healthcare, information technology management, customer care, and high-tech manufacturing. His consulting projects engagement level span from national level strategy development initiatives to one-on-one executive coaching as an active member of his community. Dr. Dinana has served as a board member Association, Egypt Post, the Chamber of Information Technology and the Telecommunication Industries, and the Children Cancer Hospital Foundation. He has multiple certifications that includes being a certified management consultant, a certified board director, a certified balanced scorecard consultant, and a certified management simulation trainer. Along with his consultancy expertise, Dr. Dinana is also a lecturer on various MBA and BA programs in Egypt in the field of marketing and sales planning, supervising a number of MBA and diploma theses. Dr. Dinana holds a Doctor of Business Administration in Healthcare Management from Nova Southeastern University in the United States of America, Executive MBA from University of New Haven School of Business in the United States as well, Diploma in Medical Electronics, Eindhoven University, International Institutes of Technology, and a Bachelor of System and Biomedical Engineering in Cairo University. What a diverse, rich background. I had the pleasure to work with Dr. Dinana in the first strategy development, using the balanced scorecard. This was almost, I think, 20 or more than 20 years ago when we jointly developed the strategy for the aviation, the aviation council or the aviation agency in Saudi Arabia. I am very happy to have this long, term friendship with him. He has been always very resourceful for the Global Performance Management Academy, and we appreciate the time he's spending and the time he's giving us tonight. I will leave the floor to Dr. Dinana. Always we have a co-moderator with us, Mr. Ahmed Al-Qabbani, and toward the end of the presentation, I think Dr. Hisham will assign some time to address your questions. Please put your question at the Q&A section, and Dr. Dinana, inshallah, will try to answer most of them. Thank you very much again, Dr. Hisham, and I will leave the floor for you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Muhammad, and thank you very much for the invitation. It's always a pleasure. Even that Dr. Muhammad actually made it sound that we are both very old. It's true that I have known Dr. Muhammad for many, many years, but we are still young at heart. Thank you. Thanks for GPMA for giving me the opportunity to be with you guys today. Let me start by sharing my screen, and then, as Dr. Muhammad said, please feel free to put the questions you have about what I'm going to be presenting or discussing, and I'll try to do my best to answer them towards the end of the session. Let me start this discussion actually with the motivation for me to write a book about strategy. If you just type the word strategy in Google, you'll have actually hundreds of thousands of books that have been written on the topic. And the question that came to my mind, why do I need really to talk about strategy now? Maybe the answer, in my view, is the questions that I keep getting all the time, either from my students or from the executives I work with in consulting, about whether strategy is still relevant. Do we still need strategy? Do we really have to worry about strategy when everything is so chaotic and everything is so crazy in the world we're living in? Because for some reason, a lot of us associate the word strategy with the concept of the future. This is basically what most of us really associate the word strategy with. And when I was thinking about also picking up a title for my book, I chose this word strategy savvy. I didn't talk about strategy formulation or strategy implementation, because I think, again, there's a lot that has been said about this. And as you've seen in the certificate offered by GPMA, they are doing a great job in teaching people how to formulate strategy and how to come up with the skills needed to execute the strategy. The word savvy here, it means shrewdness or practical knowledge. And I think this is really what I wanted to highlight, and what I hope in our discussion today, what I'll focus on. Not strategy in absolute terms, but actually strategy from a practical perspective, and also strategy with the concept of being smart in how we manage and we do strategy. So if I'm starting with trying to answer my question, whether we need a strategy or not, I think the answer is absolutely yes. Do we need to develop and execute strategy the way we've been doing in the past? The answer is absolutely no. And this is why we really have to take a fresh look, a different perspective, that I call it strategy savvy, to really start to formulate an execution strategy in a much better way to deliver the results we expect. I recall many years ago, I was listening to one of the master strategists in the world. His name is Henry Kissinger. Maybe some of you are too young to know the name, but he was the foreign minister for the USA, for the United States of America in the 70s. And they were asking him about his definition of strategy. And he used this term, or this sentence, that I found very interesting. He said, strategy is about making the future happen today. And if you get nothing out of the discussion we're having today, I hope you just remember this sentence. First of all, this sentence really tries to highlight a couple of very important points. I think number one, the idea that strategy is not about planning alone. Strategy is about making. So not only planning, because in a lot of cases, people actually associate strategy with planning. So not only planning, it's planning and doing. It's about making things happen. The second thing that I think is very important for me to highlight, that strategy is not only about the future. The strategy actually is about today and tomorrow. It's about the future and today together. So if I want to really give a metaphor about what strategy should be like, strategy should really be about linking and bridging today with the future. It's about linking today and tomorrow. It's about making sure that we have this more proactive approach to shape our future. So the message I want to get across to you guys is we do need a strategy, regardless of how crazy the world we're living on is. We do need a strategy at all levels, whether it's business level, personal level as individuals, organizations, whether it's government, the private sector, non-governmental organizations or NGOs. And why do we need that? Because this actually strategy is our way to be proactive. Strategy is our way to take better, more control of our future by acting today. So it is not only about planning for the future, it's actually a mix of both. That's why I really like the sentence that says, strategy is all about making the future happen today. And if we're talking about the future and today, usually we use this term today. We say that we are living in this world, we call it the VUCA world, a world that's full of volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And just to explain these terms quickly, by the way, this term is not new. This term actually was coined a few years ago by the US military to try to describe the world we're living in. Then it was adopted by the business people. And we have seen, of course, a lot of examples, and specifically what happened was the COVID era and even the post-COVID era, and now with the war in Ukraine, you can see that we really have to worry about this VUCA or this volatility and uncertainty and complexity and ambiguity. A lot of volatility means that things don't stand still, and actually the rate of and the pace of change is very fast. Uncertainty means some of the facts that we used to rely on when we're making management decisions actually have changed. Complexity is clear. It means that the world is becoming a lot more connected and more complex to do business in. And ambiguity means that's very difficult really to start to do very long-term planning, because there is a lot of unknowns and a lot of things that are not very clear. That's what we mean by ambiguous. And I was just giving an example a few days ago when we're talking about complexity to the disruption that happens in the supply chain. And there was a major shortage in the supply of automotive cars. And when I asked the people I was discussing this with, I told them, do you know how many parts a car have? And the answer is thousands and thousands of pieces. starting from the plastic pieces you have for the buttons and your dashboard, or the parts of your engine, to the tires, to glass, to leather. There's so many parts. But all of those parts actually could not be assembled into cars because there was only one part that was missing, and that part is actually the computer chip. And this actually was a very classical example about how now the world's becoming very complex, because there was a high concentration of manufacturing of power chips in the Far East and in Taiwan and in Korea. And that actually, when these factories could not meet the demand, the spike after the COVID-19, that caused a lot of problems for a lot of companies. The same thing, of course, can be demonstrated when we had problems with the supply of medical ventilators during the COVID. The same thing can also be said when we talk about the uncertainty. I was giving an example of how we learned over the years a management concept called economies of scale. And economy of scale basically came from the physical world that was dominated by production. And it simply says that as you increase the number of units produced, so the more you produce, the less the cost per unit, because the fixed cost will be distributed over larger pieces of that product. That kind of a concept was always used as a way to create competitive advantage. And that concept is basically what the Chinese have used to create their miracle. But with the progression of the digital world and the online world, all of a sudden this concept of economy of scale actually is now being questioned. Can we only create competitive advantage with economy of scale? Or we can also think of something else called economy of scope, where you integrate different things together. So basically what I'm trying to say to you guys is that strategy is here to stay, and we just need to take a fresh look, a new look about how we understand what strategy is all about and how we really start to activate and put strategy in action using that kind of a concept that I was discussing now. I called it the strategy savvy approach. This is some of the elements that are some of the ways that we try to address VUCA with. So VUCA, in a lot of people's minds, they think of it as a negative thing. But if you can see in the previous slide, I use these terms, opportunities and threats, because volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity can represent threats, but can also represent a lot of opportunities if you know how to deal with them. And this is why we say VUCA is not only about threats, it's not a bad thing. Actually, smart companies that know how to manage the VUCA, because VUCA is here to stay. VUCA is not going away. So my advice to you is to learn how to manage the VUCA. How do we manage the VUCA? We actually manage it with these words I have in the bottom there. Volatility can be managed using agility. Uncertainty can be managed by collecting and using information in a smarter way. Complexity can be managed by continuous restructuring to simplify and to address the complex situations we're in. And ambiguity can be addressed using experimentation. So VUCA is not something that we should, as business people or as business professionals, worry about as much as we have to embrace it. And then we have to get ourselves ready to deal with it and manage it. So we can manage VUCA using agility by being faster, by continually monitoring our environment, collecting more information, by continually addressing complexity and through restructuring, and by experimenting and trying new things. Because I can assure you that a lot of the old things that might have worked in the past might not work in the future. I was just giving an example of the largest bank here in Egypt. It's called the Al Ahli Bank. And the Al Ahli Bank was always giving, or one of its biggest assets have always been the number of branches they have. They have more branches than any other bank in the country, with a scale of 2 or 3 times more. So that was always part of their competitive advantage. But the question is, can this competitive advantage be maintained as more and more of the banking industry moves towards fintech, where a lot of things can happen happen now actually online. A lot of people are using online banking and mobile apps to exchange money and to transfer money. It's very interesting how the financial industry will be completely restructuring, and there's a lot of talks about how to control that or how to regulate it. So this is what I mean by old rules and old things that give you a competitive advantage actually has to be rethought of, has to be reconsidered. And that applies to many industries, whether we're talking about banking, we're talking about education, we're talking about the entertainment industry. That actually was my motivation to write this book. So my answer to put the concept of strategy savvy in practice is to really learn how to create what I call it a balanced strategy development approach, or the BSD. A balanced strategy development approach, from my perspective, actually tries to address 4 dimensions. A strategy has to be built around insights. So data information is absolute must when it comes to creating and executing good strategies. It has to also be taking consideration the organization culture and has taken consideration the operational excellence, or how to continually improve our processes and continually restructure to be efficient and effective. And of course, it's given that digital has to be part of this. But the reason why I say it's a balanced strategy development approach is that in a lot of cases, people talk only about digital transformation as the answer. And I personally don't believe that digital transformation is the answer. Digital transformation actually is a tool or an enabler. So it's a part of the bigger picture. So digital transformation, to succeed, it has to address issues related to operations, has to address issues related to culture. It has to provide as an output the right insights. And from that perspective, I personally believe that a balanced strategy development approach is the way to go in the future and to be able to become strategy savvy. So if on the personal level, you are thinking about how can I change my approach to strategy development, my advice would be to consider that strategy has these 4 perspectives that you have to continually balance. And the word balanced here is a very important word. Why? Because these 4 perspectives are not interchangeable. And you cannot say, I'll work on 3 and forget the 4th one, or I'll focus on 2 and ignore the other 2. No, actually, all 4 has to be worked on, and they have to achieve the right balance for them. If I use this word balance, actually, when I was reading about the future strategy and doing my research, I found this idea about the balance that comes from something you call it ambidextrous organizations. Ambidextrous organization use the metaphor of the 2 halves of the brain. As you guys know, our brain has one side that's more logical and the other side that's more emotional. So they say that the balance actually that can allow companies to really succeed and not only survive, but to thrive, really need to apply what's called exploitation strategy and exploration strategy. The exploration strategy is a strategy that's used by startups, by entrepreneurs. They are thinking about revolutionary issues built around speed, trial and error, about creation, coming up with breakthroughs. But at the same time, we see a lot of startups fail. A lot of startups actually never make it, even that a lot of those young entrepreneurs always believe they will be the next, next Mike Zuckerberg or the next Steve Jobs, which is great ambition. But the idea that I'm trying to present here is that this exploration strategy that uses this revolutionary startup entrepreneur mindset has to be balanced, and I go back to the word balanced that I was just talking about, with more of a corporate kind of a structure at some point in time, where things are built around evolution, about having some control and monitoring, about speed and scale at the same time. Again, always understanding cause and effect, about optimization, about managing cost. So the concept of strategy has to continually apply the principles of balance. And I think this example of the ambidextrous organization of the two half sides of the brains, I think is a good example that God created us this way, because God, of course, provide us with the balance that we need in our lives. So we have a logical side and emotional side, and that's why we apply exploitation strategies, exploration strategies, and this is what should our organizations also try to embed and try to apply. And this kind of mix is what I call it here, the best of the two worlds, or the best of two worlds. Going back to where I started with the idea of connecting today and the future, I think my perspective about making the future happen today comes by providing answers to these four questions. Why do we need strategy? I think the answer I already gave is because we are living in the VUCA world. We're living in that world that will continue to change and evolve, whether we like it or not. I remember I was reading a report written by McKinsey that the growth that happened in e-commerce during the COVID lockdown that took place in 8 weeks, which is 2 months, is equivalent to the growth that happened 10 years before. So you can imagine e-commerce has been around for many, many years, but it never had that tremendous growth except when the COVID took place. The question is, will e-commerce go back to the way it was before COVID? The answer is no. Will it continue to grow at the same rate that it happened during COVID? The answer is also no. The question is, there is somewhere in between. A lot of people that never bought things online before COVID started to buy things online during COVID. And then after COVID is over, they now kind of work between the two worlds, the online world and the offline world. This idea of how does strategy emerge was another interesting concept that I wanted to discuss. Because most of the books that talk about strategy and most of the lectures you hear about strategy always focus on this idea of strategic planning. And I personally don't think that planning should be the only way that strategy should come out. Strategy should come out using 4 dimensions that are integrated: planning, practice, intuition, and serendipity. So it is not only about planning. Planning has to be there for sure. You cannot ignore planning. But planning has to be mixed with practice. And this is where we talk about experience. So whoever is developing strategy have to listen to or integrate within the team people that have experience, that have practice, because this brings a lot of value to the discussion. So the problem I've seen a lot with companies, they deal with strategy development as if it's a checklist that we have to do. Oh, have we done SWOT analysis? Yes. Have we done the Porter 5 Forces analysis? Yes. Have we done competitor analysis? Yes. That's absolutely not the way to do it. We have to combine the planning and the tools that we have learned with the practice, which is the experience. And by the way, there's a whole domain in strategy called SAP, which is strategy as practice. And it works very well, specifically for small and medium enterprises. And we also have to add to it intuition. Intuition, for those that don't know the word, it means gut feeling. Sometimes we don't have all the information. And not sometimes, actually, most of the time, we don't have all the information. And most of the time, we have to make decisions based on maybe the availability of 60, 70% of the information that we need. And we cannot wait until we have 100% of the information. Otherwise, things will deteriorate. In that case, having planning and practice should be followed also with our gut feeling. Make the decision. If you remember, I told you about experimentation. Try it, go for it. If it doesn't work as planned, you can adjust, but don't stand still. Don't get what's called analysis paralysis. You continue to just collect data, analyze it, and then you find more information. But this is an endless process. So you have to combine planning, practice with intuition. And finally, serendipity, it's basically God's willing for you to succeed, which at the end of the day we all hope for. But serendipity will not work if you have not done your planning, practice, and intuition. So the idea I really want to come across to you guys in that strategy should be taken away from the pure planning domain to add to it other dimensions. We should add to strategy practice, should add to strategy intuition, and we should add to strategy serendipity. And these together, I believe, will actually provide you with better strategies that actually can have greater chances of success to avoid the ratios that Dr. Muhammad was talking about 7 out of 10 or even more fail. So to reduce the risk of failure, I believe that we have to start to mix these 4 approaches to strategy development. Strategy development using planning, practice, serendipity, intuition and serendipity. If I go back to this, comes the next question. So what does the future hold? Because again, we said strategy is about making the future happen today. So I need to understand more and more about the future. And if I already understood why do I need a strategy, I already understood the different ways for strategy to emerge, then I also need to understand more about the future. From my perspective, I believe that the future will evolve with what I call it future economies. And these future economies will drive a new type of society. We call it Society 5.0. This concept of Society 5.0 actually came out a few years ago in Japan. And by the way, it will be the theme for the next expo that will happen in Tokyo. It will be about Society 5.0. And 5.0 pushes that idea of the integration of the online and offline world, the integration of the physical and virtual. And we can see that happening already today, but actually we believe that the coming few years, we'll see more and more of this happening. And of course, you've heard about the metaverse, and you've heard, of course, about the wearables, and how these kind of devices and how we have smart refrigerators that are connected to the internet. I've seen a video about a smart refrigerator that has cameras in it that actually can monitor the quantity of a specific product you have inside the refrigerator. Like, for example, you have 2 cans of Pepsi or 2 cans of yogurt, and you set it up that when it goes down to 1, it alerts you or sends you the message to your mobile phone, or even can connect directly with your account for the online shopping platform you're using, like Amazon. It can reorder for you. So this kind of integration between a physical device like your refrigerator or your car or your smartwatch, and of course the virtual world is really going to change a lot of things. And from that comes this idea that we have the digital economy as a backbone. Then on top of the digital economy, we have 5 new types of economies. We have something called the experience economy, the sharing economy, the gig economy, the circular economy, and the purpose economy. So this is basically what I believe that the future holds. The future actually holds for us a new type of society that integrates online and offline worlds together. And for that to happen, there will be more and more foundational infrastructure available through the digital economy. And this digital economy will allow us to have these new things: the experience economy, the sharing economy, the gig economy, the circular economy, and the purpose economy. If I just give you guys a quick explanation of some of those economies, just to show you what I believe the world would, or the future would look like. We'll take that example about the experience economy. That example shows you what's called differentiation and personalization of products. How much would you pay for for the coffee beans versus how much would you pay for the Starbucks coffee cup. As you can see, the world has moved through these different stages at different times. We have coffee beans, then we have grinded coffee that you can buy at the supermarket, then you can have a cup of coffee, and then basically you move from a commodity to a good to a service to experience. And you can see that what you used to pay for as a service, which is a cup of coffee, might be 5 to 10 cents. You end up actually paying maybe $7 to $10 for a cup of coffee at Starbucks, because it is not the coffee, it's the whole experience. With that concept, we now hear a lot about the importance of customer experience in creating competitive advantages. In healthcare, everybody's talking about the patient experience. We're talking about the provider experience. So experience is going to be a central part of how we create competitive advantage and future strategies. If we're talking about the sharing economy, of course, this is the one we already know about. We even now use this verb, Uberization of businesses, where basically this idea of people are redefining the word of ownership. A lot of people today are asking, I own a lot of things that I'm not using all the time. So we started to see companies like Uber, companies like Airbnb, to share the assets that you acquire while you are not using it. You can use it sometime, but there's always extra capacity. So the sharing economy is also gaining a lot of popularity, and you can see that very heavily, even in for example, wedding dresses, things that are usually very expensive, that you know that you're going to be buying it, leaving it in your closet and not using it. Maybe others can benefit from it, and you can make money out of it. The gig economy is redefining the future of work. I was attending a meeting this morning actually talking about the future of the software development industry, and how now software developers are becoming global players even as individuals, because a lot of people now don't like the idea of being a full-time employee. They want to be an independent contractor. And this is what I mean by the gig economy. A lot more in the future will go in that direction. And a lot of companies have to consider in their strategy how we're going to be building up our staffing models, our teams. Who do we hire on full-time basis? Who do we hire on a contract basis or a project basis? The circular economy is the next evolution of what people used to call it the recycling. It's a lot more than recycling, but it really talks about going back all the way from the way we design products. We want to design products to live longer, rather than having products that become obsolete or has to be disposed of very quickly. Redesigning our maintenance and service models to extend the life of the products. So it's not really about recycling alone. It's a whole ecosystem that I think can create a lot of business opportunities for a lot of companies, again, if they start to think about how to take advantage of this. Finally, the purpose economy is really about balancing social benefits with economic benefits. And a lot of businesses today come up with that. This is not about not-for-profit organizations. It's actually for-profit organizations that actually has a social impact on the community they practice in. Okay? So just to summarize, what I'm trying to say in that section is that good strategies should be really aligned, with the vision and mission of the organization, should be aligned with a clear strategic direction, should be translated into smart and balanced goals and objectives, should be fact-based, should be based on broad thinking, focused, agreed upon, engaging, adaptable, and implementable. Those are some of the characteristics that you can use when you're trying to judge the quality of the strategies that you or your organizations are working on. Specifically, when we talk about defining the future, we always use these words that we should define the future in line with objectives that are aligned, balanced, and smart. One of the other things I proposed in my book is to build up on the traditional SWOT analysis that I think is not that helpful anymore and need to be further developed into a new model. I call it the EBoard. And the EBoard basically says that we have to look at the strategy enablers and the strategy blockers and the strategic options and the market or stakeholders' reactions to the strategy. And I think this approach is much better than just doing SWOT analysis or strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, because it gives you more opportunities to link the strategic options that you have and your anticipation about how the other stakeholders, whether your customers or your competitors, would react to your strategy with the enablers and blockers that would allow you to either execute the strategy or have challenges. So I am recommending really to move away from the traditional SWOT into that EBoard framework, which allows you to see things with different perspectives, allows you to come up with more actionable strategies, that allows you to take in consideration what happens when we execute the strategy. Because I've seen sometimes we think of it from a risk management perspective, but I think there's other ways more than just looking at the risk management perspective to really see what I call it the reactions to the strategy. Last but not least, I strongly believe that good strategies should be built on or using innovation. A Me Too strategy can allow you to survive. And it's always easy to see what others are doing and just do the same. And maybe that can be, by the way, the right choice at some point in time. But if you really want to move away from a Me Too and to move towards really breakthroughs, then you really have to incorporate innovation within the way you work. And innovation, the reason why I'm putting this Dublin 10 types of innovation framework is some people actually sometimes confuse innovation with technology or innovation with digitization, and that's not true at all. This model clearly states that innovation can happen along 10 different types, and that technology is not one of the things we see here, or digitization is not one of the things we see here. You can have actually 3 categories of innovation: configuration innovation, offering innovation, and experience innovation. If you look at the configuration innovation, we can start to see innovation in the profit model, which is basically we can innovate in how we make money. And of course, the example of Uber, or what we call it, the intermediation kind of business models, is a good example about how Uber makes money from both sides. They make money from the riders, and they make money also from the owners of the cars. And why did they succeed? Because they were able to convince both parties that they will improve the experience of both of them. The customer have better experience and the driver have better experience if somebody else mediate that relationship. That kind of a profit model innovation is not new, by the way. This has been around for so many years. The classical example that's usually given here is Gillette. Men that usually use Gillette blades know that Gillette was the first company in the world to offer a product for free, which is the shaving machine. But they knew that whoever is going to get that free product will continue to buy the consumable, which is the blades, forever. Then came companies like HP, when you're talking about laser printers. Again, a company like HP is not very focused on the idea of selling more and more printers, but actually, which is called increasing their market share. But they want to make sure that the printers they sell continue to be in use, because the price of the printer is a fraction of the money and the profit they make from selling the ink. So profit model innovation is a very interesting way for you to continue to ask yourself, are we making money the right way? Is there a different way for us to make money? And that actually can be part of your thinking in your strategy for the future. Network innovation means collaborating and networking with others. It's becoming too difficult now to do everything on your own. Actually, it's becoming impossible. So how do you create that ecosystem of business partners, of suppliers, whether at the local level or the international level or the global level? So networking is becoming a very interesting area of innovation too. Structure means continually thinking about your organization structure to become more agile, to become more efficient, more effective, reduce the waste. Process innovation, of course, talks about lean. How can I make the process faster, better, shorter in time, and so forth. Product performance innovation means that you continually improve the product performance, maybe by adding newer features to it. And product system innovation, and of course, the classical example for product system innovation is a company like Apple. A lot of people that love Apple actually love it because it creates the product system. Anything Apple connects with everything very easily, and everything is seamless. Then you can have service innovation, distribution channel innovation, brand innovation, and customer engagement innovation. Last but not least, I remind you once again that we have to have that balanced strategy development approach. Usually we start with collecting data, and this is where we can get insights, and these insights can allow us to improve our operation and improve our culture, and we use digital as the foundational part that allows these things to happen. So the traditional thinking says that we start by putting goals, strategies, initiatives, and implementation. But in this thing, in this slide, I'm just trying to say a strategy should solve a problem. So you start by identifying the problem, come up with an idea, put a strategy, and then engage as a leader to make this strategy work. And the level of engagement from the strategy and from leadership is extremely important. And always think at these three levels. What do we do now? What do we do new? And what do we need to do next? And that allows your strategy to continually be the engine that allows you to make the future happen today. Michael Anglo said the greatest danger for most of us is not that our aim is too high and we miss it, but that's too low and we reach it. So let's all aim high, and let's all hope that we can achieve our aspirations and really make things happen by becoming strategy savvy individuals and organizations. Thank you so much. We have 10 minutes. So I think I would use these to answer any questions. I don't know if the moderator would like to
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Hisham. Such a enlightful presentation. We have one question in the question and answer. Please, if anyone else has any questions, feel free to ask them right now. Someone was asking in the chat, just let me go back for a second. Can you review the last slide? Aligned, smart, and balanced. Someone was asking if we can just review that slide very quickly.
Sure. Okay. Let me review that slide because I think it's an interesting way for us to think about when we are trying to define the future. The answer about defining the future usually comes from the idea of setting objectives. And a lot of us have heard the idea of smart objectives, which is objectives should be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. But smart objective is not enough. The objective also has to be balanced. And what we mean by balanced is we have to have 4 different types of objectives. We have to have financial objectives, market objectives, operational objectives, and organizational objectives. And again, the word balanced here means that all of 4 perspectives or 4 types of objectives should be there. And of course, the objectives should be aligned with your vision, mission, strategic direction to make sure that you'll ultimately achieve them. I hope that answered that question. So when we say smart, balanced, and aligned, we mean that they are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-bound. They combine financial objectives with market, operational, organizational, and they are aligned with the vision, mission, and strategic direction of the organization. And if in the Q&A, Mr. Ahmed was asking about tools for optimum execution. Yes, there are, and actually, a lot of strategy management offices or vision realization offices, they use the tools. But I am of the opinion that the tools are not the challenge. The challenge is really how to use the tool. I always use that example of a carpenter tool box. We can be two carpenters. Both of us have the same tools. Yani we have the same screwdriver and the same hammer and everything. But one of us would come up with a very beautiful piece of furniture, and the other guy would come up with a lousy piece of furniture, because it's about how to use the tools. So in implementation, we always say that that there are those perspectives that we have to keep keeping. Number one, there has to be continuous communication. Communication. It's not something that you do in the beginning and forget about it. So communication is extremely important. Second is understanding what we call it the get and gives. Usually a strategy, some people will get something out of it and some people have to give something to it. And this kind of analysis about what people have to get, what people have to give and what people will get is very important, because in this case, strategy execution can be improved if we align this. And sometimes people call it aligning the incentive system. That's another very important part of it. And then we have the structured approach to using a balanced scorecard with KPIs to continue to monitor the progress to ensure that we are moving in the right direction. So if I have to summarize, I think these three things can be the key things to successful implementation: communication, alignment with the get and give or the incentive system, and having a good monitor and control system that allows us to adjust as we go. Okay.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hisham. There's another question as well from Mr. Muhammad Fayed. He is asking from experience perspective, is it about vibes and physical environment, or product quality, or both? Which comes first? Starbucks, as example, not is the most fancy place to have coffee. Is it quality?
Very interesting question. Actually, it's not about fancy. At the end of the day, we always say that the product and the definition of quality has to match customer needs. So we always give that example that if you go to China, you can get the exact same product with completely different prices and three completely different quality specifications. So it's really about what does the customer really need. Having a product that is perfect quality but is not affordable will not sell, and a product that does not meet minimum quality standards also will not sell. So you have first to understand from the customer perspective. You start to understand the customer perspective, and then you create what the customer would perceive as value. And by the way, in a lot of cases today, we move forward from the concept of quality to the concept of value. Customers today are not looking for quality; they're looking for value maximization. Okay. The key difference between the SWOT and the new concept, actually, the key difference is two things. The SWOT really provides you with the enablers and blockers, which is half the new model. The two other things that are not in the SWOT is the strategic options and the reactions to the strategy. So I would assume that the SWOT in its traditional way will not go away, but it does not represent the full picture that we need to look at from a strategy perspective. Last, what challenges will digital disruption bring to traditional business operational concepts such as economies of scale, scope, digital? Okay, great. I was reading an interesting article about digital transformation, and I wrote three words when I was reading the article. I wrote the word enabler and optimizer and disruptor. And I strongly believe that digital transformation will have different meaning to different companies and different organizations. Sometimes digital transformation for some organization will only mean enabling them to do things. And other cases can really optimize what they're already doing. And other cases can be completely disrupting what they are doing. But for sure, it will have an impact. So if you're asking me what would be the impact on traditional business, it will have a big impact. But the degree of the impact will change from one business to the other, depending on the type of business you're in. Okay? Great. I think that's it. That answers all the questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hisham. Such enlightful and rich presentation. It was a great pleasure having you with us. May inshallah we see you with us in future webinars, hopefully. If anyone else has any questions, please feel free to ask them. If you may give me a chance, Dr. Hisham, I just want to take 1 minute to inform everyone that we have a program coming up on the 14th of January. Let me just very quickly share my screen.
I see 3 people have raised their hand just before we close to see if we have any questions.
Please, if anyone has any questions, share them in the Q&A.
I see Ms. Shaima Ali, Anam, Matthew. So if you guys have questions, please just let me know. Okay.
Okay.
Great. Please go ahead, Ahmed. Okay.
1 second. Okay, so I just wanted to take this opportunity to very quickly inform everyone that inshallah we have a program coming up on design thinking. It's called Essentials for Being a Design Thinker. It will begin on the 14th of January. It is 4 training sessions in the evening, so it will be suitable for anyone who has work in the morning. It will be a live online training program, 3 hours a session for 4 sessions on Saturday and Wednesday from the 14th to the 25th of January. It will be by Dr. Isabel Cruz-Nacher, who is a senior consultant in innovation strategy, and she's a lecturer at the University of St. Gallen in Switzerland. We have a special discount for anyone who is registering and who has attended this webinar. The discount code is right here on the screen, EBDTMA2. Please, Mr. Imad and Mrs. Minna, if you can share in the chat the link for the registration for the program and the coupon code. As I mentioned, it will be 4 sessions in the evening, starting from 6:30 until 10 o'clock p.m. This is it. If anyone has any questions regarding the program, please feel free to contact Mrs. Minna Ala. She's the account and program manager. This is her WhatsApp and her email. And we will also share them in the chat. Please, Mr. Imad, make sure that the contact information is in the chat and that the registration link and the coupon code are also in the chat. Let me check. Yes, perfect. Yes, I can review the course content. It is right here. 1 second. Where did I go? Yes. So basically, it will be 4 days. First day, we will be speaking. It will be about introductions to human-centered design, team building, introduction. Okay, there will be a lot of group work, experiencing design thinking. Second day will be a recap of need finding phase. This is more of a detailed outline for the program. So if anyone wants more information, please feel free to join to check the link. Mr. Ahmed, please send the link one more time. It is right here. I will copy it. All of the information you need regarding the program will be in the link sent in the chat. Mrs. Najud is asking the question, is today's session recorded? Yes, it is. There is a YouTube recording for it. Mr. Ahmed, please, if you can share the YouTube link so anyone can go through the presentation which was delivered today by Dr. Hisham. One more time, I would like to thank you, Dr. Hisham, very much for this very rich presentation. It was a great pleasure having you with us, and we do hope to see you once again in the future. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. It was a great pleasure having all of you with us. And Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you.